Welcome back to another episode of the Drone to 1K podcast. I'm David Young, your host. Let me tell you a little bit about what to expect in today's episode. Today I'm talking to drone entrepreneur Noah Ruiz. And I met Noah at a drone conference several years ago. We just ran into each other, started talking. We hung out a lot at that conference and we kept in touch ever since. But I love his story because he's one of the only people I know who has taken his drone business from scratch, hired employees to scale it up, turn it into an actual organization that he then sold, or at least sold large ownership stake into, where he could have a nice chunk of money to hold on to invest, to do whatever he wanted to do with. So a very cool story if you're thinking about that. We talk about what drones he bought and how they cost tons of money back then, the fields he got into, how he landed different contracts with municipalities and states, doing different types of mapping work in the utility field. So if that sounds like something that you want to be in for and listen to, this is your episode. So we're about to dive in. But before, I always got to remind you about that shirt. If you want a free soft drone launch shirt, I'm actually not wearing one today, surprisingly. This is a very rare day. But if you want one, just leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to hear what people's thoughts are. Get the word out about this podcast for other people. So if you like it, leave us a review, screenshot it, send it to me, david@dronelaunchacademy.com, and we'll get you a free shirt for taking the time to do that. Make sure it's an honest review, not trying to bribe you to leave a good one. All right. With that said, here is the interview with Noah. All right. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here today with Noah Ruiz of Soaring Eagle Technologies. Thanks for coming on, Noah.
Hey, yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get you on here for a little while. And you and I, we met several years ago at a conference, right? Just kind of ran into each other in Vegas, seen each other around conferences since then.
Yeah, 2016. 2016, I think it was, maybe.
Really? It was a while ago, yeah. So I know you've been doing some awesome stuff in the drone space, drone service industry, more than probably most people have, because you've got a pretty good team. You're good at the business side, the management of it, not just knowing the applications. You were able to grow it. I believe you even had like a transaction, like an acquisition, right? Or at least a partial acquisition, which is really cool to see in this space. Not something that a lot of people have had the experience to be able to go through. So that's great. So yeah, I just want to dive into your story and hear how you got started. So you just want to take it back to the beginning of when you first started using drones?
Oh, yeah. So before I started doing anything with drones, I was always fascinated with like robotics and stuff like that. But I was fixing machines. I have kind of a maintenance engineering degree, and I was fixing machines at manufacturing plants, semiconductor plants, data centers, and stuff like that. I was sitting on my couch one day and I saw somebody flying drones and making money. I was like, I could do that. So I started with the easiest thing to do, which was learn how to build business or make businesses, learn about drones, which I had no idea about them. I was just fascinated with them, and kind of just figure out how to network into this whole world. Actually, and the guy I saw using this that makes money, his name's Mark Taylor. He's out in North Phoenix. Good friend of mine, Extender Productions. He's a good dude. Helped me along the way. It's kind of how we do it in this industry. We kind of help each other with things, with equipment, because we all have similar equipment and some of us have different equipment. So from that day, I was like, all right, well, that's what I want to do. And then I spent about, I'd say 6 to 8 months understanding what business is and how to do it. I read a book called The E-Myth that kind of set me up for success. And then after that, I went and found myself DJI Inspired. And I bought that first DJI Inspire. It was like $4,500 because I thought the legs were cool and they go up, I was like, oh, that's cool, man. That's definitely different than Phantom. Going for the cool guy factor. And then I started like asking around to some people about, what I could use it for as far as like doing work and taking pictures and videos of their, construction. I have a family friend, Alexander Enterprise, who does custom home builds out here in Chandler, Arizona. So I talked to them and said, hey, can I come take some pictures for you guys? And, I'm not going to charge you anything. I just want to take some pictures, gather some data, and start building the website. Like everyone else, like, oh, I can do the website myself. So I talked to my buddy and was like, no, I got it. And then all I got was like a countdown timer up. And I was like, all right, that's as far as I could get, because he's like, well, I can help you. I'm like, no, I can do it, because that's what us entrepreneurs do, figure everything out ourselves. Same time when I was like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. So that's kind of how it all started. Right. It's like I saw something on the news, like, oh, I can do that. That was 2015. That was like April of 2015 when I saw this on the news. It's like, oh, cool, I want to do that. And then I officially opened it up October 1 of 2016.
Okay, cool. So you're coming up on what, 8 years of doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my master's, right?
That's awesome. So you started off doing a little, freebie construction progress stuff. Do you remember when you got your first paying gig as a drone operator?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. It was like, how do we price these things? I don't know. I'm just taking pictures and giving them to people. It was like $250 for something in town. I took pictures of a big fancy house out in Scottsdale, not really knowing what I was doing, but I was like, oh, this is a good picture. Oh, this is a good picture. Shortly after end of 2015, probably November, December timeframe. It's nice here in Arizona all the time. So definitely sounds.
Nice. So 2015, and then did you stick to doing that stuff for a while? And like, how did the business grow from there? Like, what kind of work were you doing? And were you just kind of flying solo still?
Yeah, I was flying solo. Everything was going good. I was still working for the manufacturing plant, so I was still trying to figure out what to do and how to get
Did
there.
you like that job, the manufacturing
And
plant?
then I love that
Okay.
job. One of my favorite things right now is going to these power plants. We fly a lot of power plants and getting tours of these places
Hmm.
because I love machines and I know how manufacturing plants and I know how facilities work and stuff like that. So I'm like, hey, let's go check out all of these things. Show me the pumps, show me the motors, and show me the vacuum pump, all these things. Because like I love that stuff still.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it was kind of a good transition into the machine side of stuff. I'm still messing with machines, but different types of machines.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just curious.
Yeah, I have a little robot in the vector. He hangs out on my desk, but sometimes he interrupts, like he runs into the side.
Does he move around?
Yeah,
That's cool.
sometimes life it's got little treads on him. He has like his little block. That's little block. He like plays with his block.
That's cool. I interrupted to ask you if you liked the machine. When you said you were still working at the machine shop, you were kind of doing this on the side and talking about growing from there.
Yeah, so it wasn't so much a machine shop. It was a
Or sorry,
manufacturing
yes,
plant that was like an acre big semiconductor plant fixing like the machines like chillers, cooling towers, vacuum pumps, vacuum induction melters, all kind of crazy cool big stuff. So yeah, I loved doing that. It wasn't that I hated that job, but I was also like trying to figure out the drone world on the side. When you're flying drones and taking pictures of houses, for me, I was like, okay, this is cool, but it's not enough for me. I need more. I started looking at some of the companies that I idolized and some of the people that I idolized and the things they were doing. I was like, okay, cool. Well, I guess what I need to do is if I want to play with the big boys, I got to have the big boy toys. So started looking at equipment and I found Falcon 8, the Falcon 8, Sending Technologies Falcon 8, the first one.
I'm not super
It's
familiar
like
with that.
right? So it's this one right here behind me.
Okay, I've seen
That's
this.
the Falcon 8 Plus Intel build. Falcon 8 was a rendition before that was built by Sending Technologies.
Okay.
That thing is like it was like a $70K purchase, right? So I was going from like $4,500 purchase to $70K
70
purchase. I'm like
with 70000?
yes,
Wow.
70. But let's take it back a step. So when I started to build the business after noticing that I was only going to get so far flying Inspire DJI stuff that was, $250, $300 pop and stuff like that. I'm not a cinematographer. That's not my background or
Yep.
anything. I know like machines and mechanics, stuff like that. So I had a meeting at a hotel here. I had actually had 3 meetings of 10 people. And I had this new game plan to pivot the business into doing infrastructure inspection. Out of these 3 meetings of 10 people, I think 4 or 5 people who were game to take it to the next step, take it to the next level with me.
Okay.
So we started meeting at another office, and then I made a purchase of $70K for the Falcon 8 because we had talked to Arizona Department of Transportation to do like a demo bridge inspection. So I was like, all right, well, what better aircraft than a Falcon 8 that has a camera that points straight up?
Yeah.
Like, we were flying underneath the bridge, taking pictures straight up. That was like a pivotal moment for us. Do I take another loan out to get this thing? Do I sell my vehicle?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to take it to the next level? So I did it because I'm a big risk taker, but risk reward, So
I got a quick question.
let's do it.
When you said you met with 3 groups of 10 people, that was to like get people on your team, or those were potential like client meetings?
Oh, that was to get people on my team to start building out all the content for anything that was related to infrastructure inspection. We had no idea. Like I did a little research into like there's like a report card, an infrastructure report card that comes out, which is in 2016. That's the one I was looking at.
Mhm.
And I brought that to the table and it's just like, hey, infrastructure is something that needs to be inspected forever. So what makes sense for the business is to pivot it from photos and videos of houses to infrastructure. Why not?
Now,
That makes the most sense.
those 4 people, were you just paying them out of your own pocket? Were you kind of like doing so like they're sharing in the business, or what was how'd you do that?
That was me paying them out of my own pocket.
Did you
So
have a bunch
I
of
was
money
still
saved up?
working for. It was a risk. It's been hard. This is not an easy fit for paying hard. This is hard. Being an entrepreneur is hard. I was making decent money at the working for a manufacturing plant, but like I pulled out my 401. I pulled out my
Wow,
tapped
you
out
pushed all
everything.
those chips in, man.
Yeah, I did, man. I went all in, and I said, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go big.
Wow.
Otherwise, I'm just going to go home.
So you cashed out your retirement, hired 4 people,
Everything. Hired 4
and
people.
then bought a $70,000 drone. Did you have to take out a loan for that? How'd you pay for that?
That one's a little funny. I don't really want to say the name of the company I was going through. They'll know who they are if they hear this, but they had not provided the support I needed on controllers for the aircraft, on the 70K aircraft, that I was already like losing demos, trying to set demos up and losing them because I had a problem with the controller. I sent it to him and said, I need this thing fixed immediately. I didn't hear anything for 2 or 3 months from them. And I'm like, guys, like, this is the biggest, right? Months, right? This is the biggest thing we need in the industry, support. You know, like I need to make phone calls on a Saturday if I'm working a job to whoever at a company and say, I need you to help me figure this out right now.
Yeah.
So they provided me with almost no support. I was like, I don't want this aircraft. I don't want to do business with you guys. I'm going to find another company to sell me this aircraft. And luckily for me, I found a local shop called Branco Machinery that really like hooked me up and did real work with me. Falcon 8 Plus was coming out. So I kind of, and just the timing turned out to be really, really good for me. So I got in bed with those guys on buying the aircraft from them. It turned out the Falcon 8 Plus is a 40K instead of the 70K. Okay. So it was the next generation. Until I went and revamped the aircraft. Started getting into like some survey mapping stuff because that's what Branco Machinery was into. You know, they rent out machines to do, work and stuff like that. So on top of the infrastructure inspection, having like fuel sensor payload, thermal, and the RGB, I was also bought a high-res camera so that I could support those guys because they had hooked me up, getting me the aircraft, getting me the support. I could call this guy anytime I needed to. He brought me business too. So like it was a whole change of environment from like these guys suck to these guys are local and they actually care about other local guys like us. Because the first company was a big gigantic company that sells machines. Second company was a little company that just got into drones too. So they were kind of like, hey, let's figure this out together. Yeah. So it was another additional pivot to the main pivot to infrastructure inspection.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a 40K drone. Did you buy it from them or did they rent it out to you or how did that work?
I bought it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So I didn't end up I was planning on financing the 70K drone, but because of the support issues, I told them to take it back. Yeah. And, they wanted to charge me like a 90% restocking fee. Like, show me on the documentation where I signed this, because it wasn't there. And then I was like, keep your stuff.
How much was the restocking fee they wanted to charge you?
19%.
Jeez, that's like $15,000 or something like that. And
yeah,
restocking fee
nope,
to
not
put it on the shelf. Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh yeah. Well, hey.
Right. And this, granted, I don't know anything about any of this stuff, right? I know how to read, so I read the documentation. I was like, restocking me. I don't see it on this document, but if it's on here, I'll do it. But if it's not, like,
yeah, where's that coming from?
So,
what'd they say?
It turned in some bad blood,
Did you get your money back though? Like, did you not have to pay the restocking fee?
I didn't have to pay the restocking
fee. Okay, good.
I didn't lose any money.
Okay, all right.
It's tough. It was like, I wouldn't say a difficult decision. I had to think through the process of how I need to make all these things work together.
Yeah. Right.
So, but it worked. It was a big gamble, but it worked.
Yeah. So you got this 40K drone, team of 4 people, local company who's kind of hooking you up, maybe referring you some jobs. What was kind of your strategy at that point for getting jobs, making money, being able to pay everybody, pay for the drone, all that stuff? Yeah. So we were trying to keep the lights on with, the survey and mapping stuff. It was just, let's do some photogrammetry, let's build some 3D models for these guys. It was also in support of Branco. We were trying to sell more drones for those guys too. Okay. A lot of it was just survey. We did there's a survey firm down in Tucson who has some plots of land on some mountains. So we'd survey that. It's only a couple acres, but it's $3,000 type of jobs. Yeah. Which kept the lights on for us, got me to pay the people that were working with us. We were actively going after RFPs or working on RFPs, and we had one come out from APS, Arizona Public Service, the largest electrical utility in Arizona, also the majority stakeholder of the nuclear power plant, Palo Verde power plant. So they had an RFP coming out. We're like, all right, well, here's our chance, because even though the survey and mapping was more money than taking photos of houses and stuff like that, we were trying to got the big dog toys. So go after the big dogs. So we put up a real good case on the RFP. We actually went up against Precision Hawk on this RFP. 4 people with, let's say, $110,000 invested in this company, and going up against Precision Hawk with $110 million, invested in the company. Yeah. So I was like, well, the only thing I can do is the best job I can do. Right. So we won the RFP against them. You won the RFP? So you won the RFP? We won it. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So it was like a huge win for us. Now, this is like 2018 when it officially came out that we won it. There's a couple other companies tied
to this, RFP too, but we were one of two other companies that were tied to it.
Sure.
So it's a huge win for us, right? And now we have the ability to start bidding on different projects inside of APS, which kind of, I wouldn't say it changed the game. It's been a really long, process, as anybody here knows. Like sales cycles for electrical utility firms are super long. I mean, this RFP was an 18-month sales cycle.
Wow.
Just when the RFP out, right? 18 months. That's why we need to do some mapping and stuff.
That's not even getting paid. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all the work we put in it just to get a signature. Here you go. You can work with us.
Yeah. I feel like that's that's just like a big company thing. It's like there's just so many moving parts. It takes a while to do anything. Anytime we've worked with a big company, it's like even on a simple thing, it's like 6 months minimum.
That's true. It's true for these larger companies, and even for some of the small jobs that we have with APS now or Apollo Verde, it's 3 to 6 months to dial something in, and then now we can do some type of work with them or a little project or something like that.
So how much did that
Name of the game, right?
Yeah. That initial RFP you got, now was that for a specific job, or was that just they wanted a vendor for future jobs?
It was become a vendor for future jobs.
Okay. Once you got in, like the first job you did with them, what are we talking here in terms of revenue? Like how significant was it to your business?
It wasn't huge. It was like under 20K.
Oh, really? I mean, it's bigger than the other jobs you've been bringing in, though, right?
It was 20K over 4 quarters worth of work out of like 2 days of work each quarter. So
okay,
I mean, it wasn't huge, but it was a foot in the door. And
yeah,
I mean, let's also take another step back before we got the RFP. So we couldn't have done any of that stuff if we didn't go do any case study work with Navapache Electric Cooperative. So I went to this symposium in Prescott for mapping and GIS, right? And I ran into this lady who now looked at her badge and said she worked for Navapache Electric Cooperative. So I was like, hey, what are you doing at the symposium? She's like, I'm looking for somebody to talk to me about drones. I was like, yeah, that's me.
Like, hello.
My name's Noah. Nice to meet you. We put a game plan together where we did inspections on transmission towers. We did inspections on distribution. We flew 2 substations. We shot thermal on it. And then we also flew solar field. And I believe and then we mapped their headquarters because they wanted to design and build more stuff on. So like this was a pivotal moment for us. Yeah. It's like, all right, we're going to go up. We spent a week up there. I rented an Airbnb up there for me and my people. We spent a week up there just gathering all of this data day after day, and then we built a case study on it, and we used that information and those images and all that content to get us to the next step, which was winning the RFP with APS. Yeah. So it's like we built a good case against Precision Hawk because we went and worked our asses off as 5 people trying to get this, this case study work put together.
Now, did you do that for free because you were planning on trying to do a case study, or did you get paid for it?
Yeah, that was another free run for it. So we were like, we'll come and do all this inspection stuff because the goal was to be able to get work from them later down the road. Like the goal for any project we do is to do all the asset inspection. It's tough to do it for free, but in my mind, it made the most sense because the value that we were providing for them was up there and the value that we were gaining from it, because you can't just go and fly assets without permission from really anyone.
Right. It's kind of like when you don't have a proven track record in something, sometimes you just got to eat it up front to be able to say, oh, we did this giant project for so-and-so. And now it takes you up a level in someone's mind. It's like, oh, they're not just randos here with a drone. You know what I mean? Like actually
I didn't just buy a drone, get a Part 107, call myself an inspector,
Yeah,
so
right.
So what's good for me is I also had this experience because I was doing inspections on machines and I knew how to use thermal and I was a certified thermographer. I know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at stuff, and I know mechanics. I understand how electrical systems work. I understand these things. So that was a huge win for us, but it was also really good to be able to fall back onto the education I had and understand how I'm going to use this tool up here instead of down here,
Right. It's a good example of, deciding to go into business, just thinking through, all right, what am I already good at? How does that kind of align with what I can, do with the drone? And, so it kind of gives you a good advantage over other people that were looking to do the same stuff.
The whole business part was hard too, because I started this business. I built a business plan. I met with it's a nonprofit or an organization called SCORE in Arizona. I think they're all over the country. Have you heard of them?
Yeah. They're like the small business consulting type guys. Yeah.
So I met with them at the library, Chandler Library, on a Wednesday night for an hour for 4 weeks. A little old lady named Vicky Brush. And I brought her my business plan. She was like, this is terrible. And she shot it down every time. And But I
Sorry.
appreciate stuff like that. She made me get way better, you know? And then she's like, okay, cool. Now we have a good business plan. How are you going to fund this thing? I was like, well, besides my cash, like I should probably look for investors if I'm really trying to take it to the next level. So I built out financial plans and stuff like that. So she brought a guy in, or financial advisor in, and we
Yeah.
shot down financial plans down for 4 weeks in a row too. So like I was going through this like, did I do the right thing? Beating my head against the wall. I don't know what I'm doing, but kind of like built some toughness for understanding like I don't know anything. That's kind of where like the business kind of got dialed in more. And then after that, I was like, all right, well, I'm at a point that I need more help. So I went to Chandler Innovation Incubator, and they're here in downtown Chandler too. And they helped me just take it value proposition canvas, you know, and all these things that I had no idea about because Vicky Brush and those folks just helped me with financial plans and business plans. And these other people, Chandler Innovation Incubator, brought me up to a whole nother level that I didn't even know existed. And luckily for me, I had already read the E-Myth. So a lot of stuff they were teaching and the cohorts I went through were about, you know, the E-Myth and stuff like that. And I graduated from their cohort and I got a.
I was gonna say, for people who aren't as familiar with that book, you want to just give a brief breakdown of what the E-Myth is and kind of the core piece of the book that you're referring to?
I'm going to tell you the main takeaway that I got from it that I try to pass on to other people. So what it helped me understand is how to build a system dependent business over a people dependent business, right? So if it's a system dependent business, we now have documentation to fall back on so that if you can read, you can hire somebody who can read. They can come and pick up this document, read the document, and know how to do their job, as opposed to having all the knowledge of my business up here and only me. So if something happens to me or if I go away, all that knowledge goes with me. And I think that was a huge piece of how I got to even a different level in my business of having this documentation. Like the documentation for us was SMS, SOPs, GOMs, checklists, flight briefs, risk assessments. Like this whole package of flight operations manual is the documentation we created so that we had a system dependent business. And we would do everything from like the maintenance on an aircraft to all the way down to like what tool you're going to use for this specific nut or for this specific screw, what tool you're going to use to be able to tighten it and how tight you should tighten it, and what other like liquids or materials or any of that stuff that you would need to do the maintenance on the aircraft. So like I've learned that from just my education and fixing machines and stuff like that. It was like, well, where's my tool list to fix this machine? E-Myth is what really told me about system dependent businesses. I think that sums it up in my mind.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago, but the main thing I remember, they talk about like the baker, you're a really good baker, but if you're always the one baking pies and not actually working on the business, you know, if you get sick or you go on vacation, the business grinds to a halt. But if you take a step back, instead of being the technician and you, like you said, you're building those systems to bring people in, here's how we bake our pie, here's how we do this. You can have people come and go. You can even take a break and the business doesn't grind to a halt. Yeah.
Yeah, you got an entrepreneur, you got your technician, you got your manager, you know, and
Yeah.
pretty much two. Everyone's two of them. Sometimes I feel like I'm three because I'm also a technician, but I can manage the shit out of some stuff, right? And then I'm still an entrepreneur. Like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've always have been since I can ever remember. I just didn't really know what it was and knew how to spell it for such a long time.
I feel like I should reread that one. It's a great book.
I went through, I read it, and I highlighted a lot of parts. So I actually picked it up and kind of go through it when I help a lot of people build businesses and just try to understand things about business in a different mindset that they may have. So I reference that book a lot. I buy people that book if they're starting a business, and then I'll break it out and be like, hey, like here's the things you need to think about if you want to, you know, build this thing right. And you want to create a legacy to leave behind. This is how you're going to want to do it. Make it so that anyone can do this job.
Yeah, it's a great book, great resource. Let's dive back into your business for a sec. So you got the stuff going on with the electrical company, you did that demo, or you guys, I guess you did the case study. You got those jobs, you're building from there. What about where are we in the time frame of your story and kind of where does it go from there?
I think we're 2018, 2019. So 2019, we're kind of just swimming in, you know, some survey mapping stuff, still trying to get some of these bigger projects with APS, but it was hard. There was a roadblock put in place with an enormous amount of insurance that we were required to have. And it's kind of a roadblock to stop the whole program. But it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to buy the insurance we need. And then got around that roadblock. But because of that, it stopped a lot of progress with APS. So 2020, you know, people were asking me, hey, are you ever going to sell this business? And I'm like, nah, I'm never going to sell this business. You know, it's like, that's maybe, right? And then had somebody from Houston reaching out to me on LinkedIn and kind of like pushing me away, or I was pushing them away. I've had a lot of investors reach out and ask me, hey, we want to invest in your business. And I'm like, well, I don't need capital. I don't want to just get capital and sit on capital. I need like strategic investors, like help me get it to the next level. I need like some information. I need mentorship. Capital is great, but like I need someone to bring me contracts. I got a phone call, and it was this guy from Houston, and he's like, you know what? Like, what's up? Like, man, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I want to do a partnership. I want to talk to you about building a partnership. You work in the electrical utility space also. He's like, and I can bring you some contracts. And I was like, all right, what do you need me to do? He's like, well, can you fly to Houston? So I was like, all right, yeah, pay for my hotel and my car and my food. So I flew to Houston, hashed it out, talked about it, told them about the business and where it's going. Mind you, this is 2020, I guess, right when some things were getting a little crazy in the world. And the business, all businesses struggle, I think, at that point, like what were we doing next? So in order for me to help continue to make the business work, I picked up a teaching job at Arizona State University, teaching the drone program. So I kind of went in there and revamped the curriculum, more of the operational. They have a really great engineering program for drones at the Tempe campus, but this was at the Polytech campus, and they didn't have a real great operational background. They had some building skills that they had set aside for students to build drones and test them out. But me and some of the students went through and revamped the curriculum to make it more operational heavy, so that students this is a aviation based school at Polytech who was really into getting private pilot's license for students and whatnot, and they have a pilot program. And so the drones were kind of just on like a side thing, like, oh yeah, take this elective or whatever. So when we went in there, I kind of redid the curriculum to state it where you go from 0 to 100. So we built the drone, we programmed everything, we flew it, we landed it, then we put a camera on it, and we got that set up. Then we taught them how to do different types of flight patterns. And then we taught them how to do mapping patterns and then do inspection, and then kind of walk them through everything from nothing to being able to do a full operational flight with building a data set and providing a deliverable, so that now you can see it from start to finish. And then also you have like surveys, you have mapping, you have infrastructure inspection, you have thermal. You had some people that were interested in doing ag stuff. You had some people who were interested in just using a flight simulator to get hours so that they could go into the military with training hours on a flight simulator. So I kind of positioned it to where, like, here's all the stuff. What interests you the most? Let's follow that path the whole way and then build certificates for you. So now you have a certificate in doing photogrammetry. Not saying that I'm a photogrammetrist, like teaching you the ways, but like, here's a way that you can do it. And here's a certificate saying that you've done it before, that you can go to a company and say, oh, I know what overlap is, and I know what GSD is, and I know about cameras and how to make them work to do some type of mapping. Oh, I know I can read what a thermal image looks like. I'm not a thermographer, but I can definitely tell you, like, hey, there's a qualitative assessment. There's something wrong with this thing here. So we did the curriculum. So it was more beneficial for the students as they ended their careers at ASU and got into something. We had that going on. Yeah, it was at the very beginning of the craziness of the world. It's also good to know. I also helped Unmanned Vehicle University, who used to be Stampede, right? They're like the opposite of Stampede. We taught a couple of companies how to fly drones to do different types of inspections on roofs and cell towers and stuff like that. So I was kind of like using that stuff to help pay for some of the bills at the house and also pay for people who were working with us. So we, how companies go, you get coming in, going out, there's a flow. So at times there was like 2 people, at times there were 6 people. Sometimes it was just me. I've had one guy who stuck with me the whole time, so I was always looking out for him. All these things led up to 2020. And then I went out to Texas. We built a term sheet. And then within 3 months, we had a term sheet signed. And I had sold a portion of my company to a holdings company out of Texas who had a vegetation, growth extent, and vegetation audit company that we were planning on getting in bed with, so that now we can use our technology to help those guys do their job quicker and safer by using drones to do the work, and then having the augurists go and do the inspections off the images.
So how much of your company did you sell?
70%.
70. Okay, so you still have some?
Yeah. So this is 2020, sold 70%. We hired another BDR and a few other SDRs, and then started building out cases for more mapping, because those mapping and survey work kind of what keep the lights on, because like as mentioned, the sales cycle for electrical utility are long, and
Yeah.
It's more like, we can call it seasonal based. You ramp up to service a project that 2 or 3 months, and then you're like, sorry guys, we don't have any more work for you, so goodbye. Not a bad thing, because that's just the way
Yeah.
that this whole game works. But for us to keep our people on board, we wanted to backfill it with mapping and survey type work, because that's a constant thing that we can get. And we can get it all over the country too. So 2021, we bought a BVLOS aircraft with Census Technology. We started doing some testing with BVLOS aircraft. And then we applied for a BVLOS waiver. And in 2021, Skynet West, was the older company that I built, received a waiver to fly BVLOS with a 3-mile radius in Florence, Arizona. Now we're like, okay, we all know this is the holy grail of the whole thing. So,
And for real quick, for some people, if they're listening, they're not sure what BVLOS is. Describe it real quick.
well, BVLOS is beyond visual line of sight. It's basically stating that you have a waiver from the FAA allowing you to fly this aircraft farther than you can see it. There is, in this specific waiver, we were limited to 3 miles out, so 3-mile radius. I don't know, some of you guys have seen an aircraft fly at 2 miles, but like once you're at like 125 and it's a small aircraft, it's kind of gone. This is a big aircraft, 92-inch wingspan. So at 1.5 miles, you're hoping like when it makes a turn, you're like, oh yeah, I got it. But after that, it's gone. Now you're just flying off a computer, and we have a mobile operation in our mobile command center. It's a trailer that has servers and stuff like that. So that's the only way we were able to fly BVLOS, is having this MOC fly out of.
And those things are not cheap. I went and toured, because they're not far from here. The Census, they're like 2 hours away. Actually texted you because I was at their headquarters and they're showing us their wall of waivers. And I was like, no, Ruiz, I know that guy. And they're like, what? I didn't realize
Which
you
one
had one
was
of those.
that?
The Centaur.
Which one was that? Which waiver was that?
Which waiver? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't remember. I saw a few on the wall. Didn't you have? Do you have more than one, or did they just put it up there more
Yeah.
than once?
No, we have a few. So
Yeah.
2021, we received our BVLOS waiver. Started doing.
And what was, you got a 3-mile waiver? Was that for like a specific job site, or was that just kind of like tested out in that area?
That was, so our goal. So how a lot of these waivers are coming out where they're geo constrained, right? So we're dedicated, only allowed to fly in this specific area, and sparsely populated, or no population, if you want to call it that. And it was for us to test the capability of the aircraft, test the telemetry, and all the things involved with it. One way we could get 1.5 miles away, the other way we could get 3 miles out. So that was all dependent on terrain and stuff. So we were doing different ways we set our antennas, how we had the antennas on the aircraft. There's all different things. We were doing different takeoff and landings, different sorties. We wanted to get over 250 sorties so that we can come to the FAA and say, hey, we want to expand this area to 5 miles so we can do some more testing, or we wanted to apply for another location. So all the testing we did in that location allowed, and mind you, this is Arizona in the summertime. And at this time, we didn't have the MOC yet. We were flying out of the table. We got a box fan, and we had a box fan blowing on us. We had a table. We got one of those cool things that you can like, what I'm talking about? Yeah. We got one of those, put the antenna on top of that thing and raise it up and put it under the tent, and it's flying. We're like,
that's awesome.
Send it, right? So that's where we started doing it out there. It was hot. So the goal was to get the sorties and flights in place and say, hey, our track record of flying this thing this many times has shown a success for us to be able to apply for areas that may have a little bit more population or in different types of environments. So this was in the desert, and then we had applied for a place in Payson, which is higher in the mountains. It's about 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet, something like that. So we wanted to test there. During this time, though, we as a company, Skynet West and the holdings company, we were like, okay, well, we're going to build out this BVLOS thing. Let's talk to some other people who may or may not have flown BVLOS and have a little bit more knowledge than me, because I'm flying the 3-mile radius. Some people have flown to other places for storm response and stuff like that. So I found a company called Soaring Eagle Imaging of Mississippi, and I talked to Will Payton. I said, hey, let's talk about some BVLOS stuff. So we hashed it out. Come to find out, he's a military dude also. I was an infantryman, and he flies Black Hawk. So I was pretty gnarly. Like, you fly the helicopters that I used to get out of when I did my work. Like, we have that pretty solid connection. So we talked, hashed it out, and said, all right, this is good. So I talked to my people at the parent company and said, hey, if we really want to do this thing bigger and take it to the next level, I think we should talk about merging with these guys. We ended up acquiring and merging with Soaring Eagle Imaging, and then rebranding both companies to become Soaring Eagle Technologies. And now this gave us headquarters in Houston, operations center in Arizona, operations center in Mississippi. We divided the country up by the river Mississippi River, and I run everything on this side of the country, and our director of operations runs everything on that side of the country. Now we merged with
Cool.
these guys, so now we're Soaring Eagle Technologies, and I said, hey, so we already had a BB loss waiver. They did not have a BB loss waiver, but they formed BB loss on the SGI, the Special Government Interest, flights that they can
Yep.
do for storm response, and they actually flew a 52-mile run BVLOS with a VLOS aircraft, at this time after a hurricane. So they had
How did they go
experience.
that far?
I think they had their own ways to do it. It could have been hopscotch Anikas and a few different things,
Okay.
So 52 miles, 25, what's that, 21, 26 out, 26 back, something like that, right? That how you
Okay.
divide
Wow.
they had experience doing it, so we're like, okay, well, let's take it to the next level. So we merged. Said, all right, here's the game plan. Let's really do this BB loss thing right, while being able to serve survey and mapping, and then still do infrastructure inspection. What came along with those guys was AEP and Entergy and stuff like that. So some bigger electrical utility firms on that side of the country that they've already
Mm-hmm.
worked for. So now we're this nationwide company servicing electrical utility firms that have experience in that, also have experience in mapping. So they were focused more on storm response electrical utility and a little bit of mapping. And then we were doing a lot of mapping and a little bit of electrical utility. And then both of us had the common interest of doing BVLOS stuff. It was a good fit. Everyone on that side of the country is just like down to earth, really, really good, solid individuals. Now we have two places. We now have two BVLOS aircraft and two MOCs. But Arizona is the only place with the waiver. So we went and applied for a waiver in Payson in the mountains so that we can now test the different flights over different terrains, right? Figure out how that's going to work for us. Put a bunch of sorties in. And then the goal here was to get a non-geo constrained waiver. We flew the shit out of some BVLOS aircraft, right? In the desert and in the mountains. We put together a really solid case to get a non-geo constrained waiver. And then last year or recently, we received a non-geo constrained BV loss waiver that allows us to fly anywhere in the country.
Wow, nice. Does it have any other like stipulations on it?
There's some stipulations. It's a performance-based risk assessment, and we have to look at population density. So last year's base population density, there's a few things that come into play with it, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to fly
Gives you a
BV
ton
loss
of
over
space
house anyway. But it
Yeah.
allows us to take it to the next level.
That's awesome. Well, that
Yeah.
unlocks a lot
So
of
many
possibilities for you that other companies, don't have and
so
won't
many
for a while.
because now you can map large pieces of land, right? So here's something we found out. Like, we're watching LinkedIn and stuff, and people are like, "Oh, I just flew this, 1,000 acres over the sports." It's like, well, when you can't see the aircraft, that's essentially BB loss. Like, that's what BB loss is,
Yeah.
beyond visual line of sight. You can't see it. So how did you fly that if you don't have a BB loss waiver, right? I'm not gonna go and call the FAA and be like, "Hey, this guy is, flying BB loss," but
Right.
those are the things that set us apart from other people. So we take those things into consideration. We're like, there's trees here. That's a BB lost flight. Let's do the paperwork to do it right so that we can conduct this flight safely, right? Because that's how you make your headway in this industry, is doing things right.
Well, and if you're working for another company too, and they don't want to be hiring you if you're going to be breaking rules and being a liability for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the rising tides thing. We're all industry advocates. Everyone that's part of this industry should be an industry advocate trying to build this industry up so that we can all make it together. That's the way I see it. Not everyone sees it that way, but I'm not a cutthroat person. And if any of the people that are listening need our help from anywhere around the country with aircraft or information or training, reach out, man. I'm here to help. So now we have this non-geo constrained BV loss waiver. We can fly larger plots of land to do mapping, because now we can fly 2,000, 2,500 acres of land, because we're allowed to fly this aircraft where we can't see it. We can fly transmission towers, linear infrastructure inspection. We can fly that stuff and do more inspections quicker. We can do more vegetation encroachment audits, right? Because now we can fly this aircraft further than we can see it.
And vegetation encroachment audit. Break that down real quick. What is that?
So they're the right of ways over the transmission lines, around the transmission lines. There's a lot of vegetation growing into encroaching in on the power lines, even in distribution. So right now there's a few companies out there that are currently boots on ground, walking the lines, notating, auditing the vegetation that's growing in. You take pictures and get the same notation that the arborists are doing off of drone.
I'm sure you can do it in like a super fraction of the time that they're spending out there walking if they're going by hand.
Yeah, right. And then the labor force, there's so many different things that are useful. And I think a lot of people are always worried about the drones taking over, making people's businesses. Well, what I tell them is you got to get on board or get out of the way, because If you're
Yeah.
smart about it, you're going to get on board. You use the technology to your benefit and keep your job, or you can be there, sit there and be angry and then watch your job go away.
It's like back when accounting software came out for computers, they used to literally tabulate stuff by hand, like keep books and records like by hand. Okay, we spent this much money minus this. They still have bookkeepers and accountants today. They just use computers to do it 100 more times than they could do it before. So if you just don't want to learn how to use a computer, I mean, people would think that that's crazy now. Oh, you don't want to learn how to use a computer for your job, right? But it's the same thing as like, you're not, I don't want to adapt to technology. It's like, well, it's going to happen whether you like it or not at some point.
The train is coming through, so get out of the way.
Well, I've kept you on here for a little while. I really appreciate you walking through the whole story. Like, there was a long history. I think it's really cool for people on here to hear somebody, we have all sorts of people on this podcast. Some people doing enterprise stuff, making a few $100K a year, down to I just started flying my drone 3 months ago, and now I'm making a grand or two a month. Here's what I've learned, kind of thing. So it's always nice to get people like you on here who have been in the industry a long time, done so much to even have like done a getting acquired and still being in there and merging with other companies and flying big platforms, doing beyond visual line of sight. It's just can show people, hey, here's where the industry is going. Here's what's possible. So I really appreciate you sharing all that. And I'm sure you will open up a can of worms by offering your tips and advice out to people. So because people will hit you every time people come on this podcast, they always tell me, people are reaching out to me afterwards. So for that, if people do want to ask you questions or just say thanks for being on here, what would be the best way for them to like check your stuff out or get a hold of you? Instagram, email? What do you think?
I think LinkedIn is probably the
LinkedIn.
best way to get a hold of me if you want to chat. LinkedIn is a good place to find me.
We'll link up your LinkedIn on the episode. So if people want to connect with you there, they can hit you up there. I appreciate you doing this chat with me, and thanks for your time.